Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets, presented by Prize Picks, here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to go through Thursday, May 20th, NHL playoff action. DJ, we finally got rid of the regular season, and as a result, we get the Canada teams. How you doing, bud? And are you looking forward to this Tuesday or Thursday slate?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is good to see the Canadian teams at the playoffs. I mean, both of these series, I was really looking forward to seeing Matthews and McDavid. So we're getting some of that McDavid action tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to have Matthews against a odd-looking Montreal Canadian teams than what I thought it was going to be. So I'm excited to see them. But we're going to get 3 rematches from the last time we talked on the Mayo Media Network. We also have done a podcast every day this week, it seems. 1 on the morning skate, 2 over here. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely get on over. Matt, are you wearing the morning skate shirt? Is that?
No,
you're not.
No,
Okay.
it's a buffalo. You know, it's a cool little buffalo.
I remember that team. Remember that team?
Nah, well, I mean, it's not even it's not even the Bills. It's like a whatever, like an actual buffalo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good animal. Cool. Anyways, back on track here. So we have 4 games starting at 6:30 and going, last one starts at 9:30 on the East Coast. So the NHL actually kind of spreading it out, 6:30, 7:30, 9:30, kind of always keep hockey on. That's always what we want to see. A couple bigger money lines in the playoffs here. So we'll get right to it. Matt, how are you feeling? Anything you want to discuss before we get started here?
No, I mean, we kind of saw a very hectic opening couple days of the playoffs. The couple days preceding this one have been, a bit more tame, I would say. There's no, I would say, barn burner, sort of like the Tampa Florida game, for example, in game 1 was. Game 2 was much more chill, I would say. And teams are just sort of falling into their defensive molds. Hopefully a team like Toronto can break that mold, open up the slate a little bit. But it's very tight checking, tons of like block shots and just guys diving everywhere, and not a ton of space. So it's been interesting to sort of see that evolve since the first game. The second games were just much more closed off. So interested to see if that continues here. Before we go through the 4 games game by game, talking about our favorite bets and DFS plays and so forth, I do want to talk to you a little bit about Prize Picks. Make sure you head on over to prizepicks.com and use promo code MMN as a Mayo Media Network when you sign up. If you do that, you'll get up to $100 in a match deposit bonus. So, we all like free money. So go do that, and it'll support us, it'll support the show, and it'll help your wallet as well. What you do over on Prize Picks is there's a board of players. You go, you see all these players. All you do, you have to pick the over or the under on a given fantasy score. So for hockey, it's super simple. You get 3 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist, and a half point for a block, and a half point for a shot on goal. So if you see a number and you like the over, you just take the over. You can match up to 5 guys in one entry. And if you get all of them right, win up to 10x your money. So make sure you're heading over there, use promo code MMN when you sign up. And DJ, where are we going first?
We are going to the Battle of Florida at Tampa Bay. So we're going over from Sunrise to Tampa Bay. Like you kind of alluded to at the beginning, the first game was absolutely crazy. All the DFS goodness in the world. Second game, a lot slower. Not the huge shots, not the huge fantasy scores that we're used to. Barkov still did Barkov things. But Tampa Bay got the win. And Tampa's, lower kind of tier guys maybe are stepping up a little bit. Gani Gord, kind of the big goal scorer to get Tampa over the edge. So Matt, how are you feeling about this one off the cuff back in Tampa?
Yeah, I'm on the Panthers again. Good old Stanley C. Panther, as our buddy Cam Stewart likes to say. It's just Florida's played really well in those opening 2 games. I know they were in Florida. I know they ended up losing both of them. But honestly, objectively speaking, they did play very well. They also get Sam Bennett back into the lineup after serving his 1-game suspension. So I'm kind of feeling good about taking the value here at plus 130 on the Florida side. They've dominated the possession, the expected goals in both games. And frankly, Tampa had a couple good bounces go their way. They got up early, and then they just tried to sit on that lead the entire game. And honestly, it probably shouldn't have worked. Florida got pretty unlucky for large swaths of that game. Their power play looked pretty good, and Sam Bennett will only help that. So I'm feeling Florida pretty good here. And also the over on 5.5. I mean, of the series, I know game 2 is a slightly calmer, But it's still, the expected goals were above that. So unless these goalies play out of their mind, I think Florida and the overs where I'm going in this one.
Yeah, I think the one big note going into this game was the fact that we weren't going to have Sam Bennett, and Barkov played 26 minutes, or right around there. Impressive work by him. We should get Sam Bennett back. I can't imagine if there's any reason he'd miss. He had the 1 game suspension that he has served. Florida did go 11-7, so not expecting that again. So back to normal for them. And if you're looking over on for a prop bet here, Sam Bennett plus 295 to score. I mean, this guy was firing 5-6 pucks on net seemingly every single game. He's 5,400 on DraftKings. Just also a guy that blocks pucks. Not a crazy, but he's definitely a guy that will get in front of it. So I really like him just overall. I like Barkov more, obviously, but if there's any center on this slate that I'm targeting, it's going to be one of those two guys in Florida. I think over anyone on Tampa point, just a little bit too expensive at that price, especially because I'm going to be prioritizing Toronto. It's going to be hard to get that in. Matt, is there anyone else, though, maybe at the wing position that you're targeting heavily?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to know ahead of time because, with Bennett in, they didn't do this, but when Bennett went out, they went 11-7, and they actually played Mason Marchment up in Anthony Duclair's spot on the top line with Barkov and Verhaeghe. Mason Marchment, obviously, if he's in that position again, is just in a great spot. He ended up scoring, had a nice game, and just generally looked like he belonged. We know that Anthony Duclair has, been in the doghouse for Quenneville, several times. And this sort of just seems like an area where, like, if people aren't going to play Mason Marchment at like the minimum salary, then I'm going to go for it. Unfortunately, his goal prop has been juiced up to plus 310. I'd actually prefer a guy like Frank Vetrano at plus 335 over Marchment.
Yeah.
But I think that that's sort of like the main source of value. But it is also worth considering on the Tampa side, a guy like Alex Killorn getting that top power play run. Obviously Kucherov, Stamkos, Hedman are your main guys there, but at Braden Point getting those, Kucherov one-timers. However, Killorn is just as likely to pick up a garbage goal, rebound goal. If this game, is up tempo, he's been pretty involved too. So getting some value at plus 235 on him makes a little bit of sense. And then one more guy, Patrick Hornqvist, plus 265. I mean, he's the garbage guy on the power play for Florida. He's never going to be playing, monster minutes at 5-on-5, but every time he's out there, he's got a nose for the net. He gets there to the dirty areas. If Florida scores, I think it comes through him, and obviously it comes through Barkov. So I think that's my main thoughts on this game. I might end up going back to guys like Montour and Nudivara if we get confirmed with 6 defensemen. But if they go 11-7 again, I'm just jamming in Barkov and I'm loading up on all the pieces of Florida that I can find because I think they're all great values in that circumstance.
I totally agree. I think everything you just said is pretty much spot on there. And, with the lines being what they are, you get Florida at plus 130. I think that's a pretty sharp bet. I'm not sure if I'm majorly parlaying it because Tampa Bay could definitely get the win. I don't think it would be anywhere out of the realm of possibility. Vasilevsky looked pretty good in the last one. But with all that being said, are you ready to move over to the game? Surprisingly, I must have had the most shots on net by a good margin. The Pittsburgh at the Islanders now. Are you ready to move over there?
Yeah. These are not your mama's Islanders, I suppose, because, oh boy.
You made the same joke last time, and it's still funny.
I mean, look, I said that, and then look what happened. Jari, I think, had about 55 saves.
Have you ever heard of Scott Mayfield?
I mean, yeah, the modern day Brent Burns, they like to say. But no, really, though, Pittsburgh at the Islanders. The Islanders are a home favorite minus 120. I get the series is tied 1-1, but I'm all in on this Pittsburgh top line. So I'm siding with the Pittsburgh side here. Any thoughts on the over or the under, though?
I really want to say the over just because of how many shots were fired on net. It is hard, though, because how many of these were super quality scoring chances? It's a little bit tough to say. So,
well, I'm 7 Scott Mayfield 200-foot slap shots,
that's what I mean. It's hard. I don't know. It's so strange.
He's due, I would say, for a goal.
It would seem. I would say that I'm pretty indifferent on it. You could talk me into either way. I think the under is just a little bit. Anytime it's the Islanders, I just think they do such a good job defensively. And really, if they can limit the top line, that's the line that's getting a ton of chances. I'm a little bit hesitant to be overly bullish on it, but I do slightly like the under. I mean, what a Trotz move to start Varlam off. I mean, they lost, but he looked fantastic. Still got 26 DraftKings points, just doing his job out there. I definitely think I'm probably going to go back to him again, honestly, at 7,900 even. I kind of like the Islanders here, honestly. I think that they'll get it done at home. I don't think there's any – I really think this is a pretty good toss-up, and they're only minus 120 at home. I think I just would take that. I know I feel like you're going to go the other way on this, but I don't know. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, a spot, like, obviously the Scott Mayfield thing was his, whatever, ceiling of a performance. But something like that sort of was brewing when you sort of dug into, like, the underlying numbers for him against the Penguins, especially on the year. I think on the other side, one guy who that could happen for is Mike Matheson. I know it didn't really work out. He put up 0 on, last game. But this is a guy historically who has been a very strong rates guy, a very strong contributor, playing, 20 plus minutes a night at 3.2 on DraftKings. I just think he's the sort of archetype of a guy who, you could obviously chase Mayfield or you could chase these other guys who have gotten it done. But I think Matheson's next up if you want like the random guy who just sort of has a spike night. Feels like he's the one. So that's really my only thought, like in terms of guys I would actually kind of consider myself, honestly, for DraftKings, just because I like all these other games much more.
Me too.
However, you gotta consider Brian Russ sub 6K. He probably didn't deserve the goal he had, but hey, you got to put the puck on net. And he's a guy who's, he does that, and he does that in bunches. So puts up 4 shots in each of the first 2 games of the series. You're looking for one more and a couple points, and there you go. I mean, there's your DraftKings GPP winner right there. Yeah, and he's pretty reasonable.
Who had more shots on goal than him in the past 2? It's Jake Gensel. Yeah. Jake Gensel. I mean, I think if I'm taking any shot prop, it's his. He's probably one of my favorites of the night to get over 2.5. If you can find him for 3, I still would take it. Maybe you'll get a little bit better odds on that. That line has just been really, really good. They've done everything they could to slow it down, but like you mentioned, Rust had 4, Crosby had 5, and Gensel had 7, as I was alluding to. I'm not sure if I said the number. That is a lot of shots for one line, and I just don't really see any reason that you should fade it. I think if you run multiple lines, you got to have Pittsburgh 1 in there because they are just a couple from couple goals going in the net away from breaking the slate wide open.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's it's probably the second best line of the night, I would say.
If instead of catching the puck and trying to throw it down the ice like a shortstop, I mean, Brian Rust literally did that with an empty net. If he puts the puck down, bats it down the ice and puts it in, I mean, you've already got a GPP winner. That's a 30-point night for him. So it's something that, we're always one bounce away from a huge night, and we're always, one bounce away from an epic L. So, something to consider is, obviously the variance will come and it'll go. So, just stay at it throughout the playoffs.
Any Islanders guys we want to mention? I don't know if we kind of faded them talking about too. I mean, I think it's kind of the same suspects as last time we podcasted with like Wahlstrom and stuff being like, I would say good to supreme values. 2,900 for Wahlstrom, getting the minutes and putting 5 shots on goal in the past 2. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a good enough rate shooter for me, and he has a good enough scoring upside. Like, he has a good shot. It's not like it's just like him shooting the puck from anywhere. He actually has some pretty quality shots. So I could talk myself into him again. He was on they didn't get a ton of power play run, but he was out there for the main power play they had. So
yeah, I think he's the main value guy.
Yeah, okay.
You could chase a guy like Eberle and just sort of say, this is going to be the Barzal night, but that's not really what I do. So I think, if you can find Wahlstrom shot props, I like him. Otherwise, it's probably just I actually don't even really know because both Pulock and Leddy got some time on the power play. So I don't know. I'm sort of just staying away from the Islanders myself. Yeah. But,
for me, you think?
No, I don't think so. For me, it's the Pittsburgh money line. I'm not overly confident on the, the over, the under, or the shot quality, the shot attempts in this game or anything like that. So I'll probably just stay away for the most part. Anything else though before we move on?
No, let's get to I'd say my favorite game of the night. It's
Certainly will be
Montreal.
interesting.
Montreal, Toronto. I mean, if you listen to any Canadian anything podcast, whatever, that's like the first time since I man touched the moon that these teams have faced in the playoffs or something ridiculous, and it's just bitter rivalry that we never see. So I'm excited. I know it's we're just maybe going to be fans back by the series end. I know a lot of people have been trying to dying to go to this game, so I'm excited to watch it myself. Though 7:30 start time, Montreal, Toronto. First time we're seeing it. Toronto, huge home favorites at minus 205 for any playoff game. It has to be the most. 5.5 over under right now. I definitely like the over. And I mean, it's going to be hard for me to get away from Toronto. I almost guarantee I'll be stacking that entire first line of Matthews, Marner, and Hyman. So, Matt, with all that being said by me, how are you feeling initially about this game? And is there any DFS angle that you're already kind of in on?
I feel good. I want the Toronto total, the team total. I just want to jam it. I mean, Montreal is just shooting themselves in the foot. Like, yeah, they're going to try and play a muck and grind type game, but Austin Matthews is not really here for mucking and grinding. I think Toronto just blows them out of the building for game one. I mean, yes, they're saying Montreal, Shea Weber's healthy. They're saying Gallagher's good to go, but I'll believe it when I see it. They're also starting Carey Price. Like, it's sort of like, what really are we doing here? There's a lot of unknowns. They're also just healthy scratching. Yes, Barry Kotkaniemi and Cole Caulfield. Like, I get it. They're rookies, but at some point you got to play your best players. So I think this one could go very similarly to how Nashville, Carolina went, where Nashville was like, well, we don't need Eeli Tolvanen. And turns out it didn't really matter because, Nashville's a far inferior team to Carolina. But I think just sort of the 5-2, the lesson taken, Montreal almost burns to the ground. Then they put up a better effort in game two. Maybe that happens. But I think game one, I want all in on this Toronto side. I'm seeing over 3.5 at plus money for Toronto. I kind of like that. I think that's where I want to go with this one. You could take the over under of the game itself, but I don't trust Montreal. So I just sort of want some Toronto action here.
Yeah, and as I kind of got to my favorite stack of the night, and I'll just say it now because we're not going to say it later, is that Toronto one. It all correlates on the power play as well. The practice line for power play they had was Hyman net front with Matthews in his normal spot, Marner on the other side of that, Thornton center, and then Rasmus Sandin actually on the point still, which we saw at the end of the year. We were kind of in on it for DFS. He's not been a great rates guy, but you never know in the playoffs. Puck it's moving a little faster sometimes, and he could definitely double assists on the power play and be a really good asset at 3.1 in DraftKings. The second unit had the Nylander Tavares with Simmons in front, Spezza and Riley at the point. So if you want to get a little contrarian and you really like the Leafs, the Tavares Nylander, I think is a pretty nice little value. It's not crazy, but Nylander at 5,400 is a really nice price for him. And Tavares just so much cheaper than Matthews at 6,400 that like if you do that, I think there's decent to good upside there. But the Matthews, Marner, Hyman, Sandin stack is probably going to be the how I start my lineup. Try to get some Pittsburgh in there, and then get some pieces.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that Toronto rolled out power play units that are basically their 5-on-5 units, so I don't need to think like, what if they score on the power play? Like, what if because they're not going to score on the power play because they haven't scored, I think since the last time these two teams played in the playoffs, it's been since, they scored a power play goal. So, I don't know. It's sort of like one of those things where like, yes, it's nice they're on the same power play unit, but is that really why I'm making that decision? No. I do like that though. Matthews, Marner, Hyman, or the second line to be different for sure. I get it. So give me the over.
Any player props you wanted to get to here though, because I feel like we should at least do that justice. I mean, Gallagher at plus 205 to score seems a little bit odd. I'm not sure if I could sink my teeth into it myself. just because he hasn't played in so long, but it seems fair enough. Like he is a pretty good rate shooter, and they have him on the first power play unit with Suzuki, Toffoli, Petrie, and Perry, which doesn't correlate with his line at all. But Petrie and Gallagher is pretty cheap, I'd say, comparatively to what it used to be. 5,100 for Gallagher is just a good discount. We're also getting Shea Weber back. He said he's good to go. I can't imagine he misses. 4,800 for him seems like a fair price for a guy that could hit both bonuses. We mentioned it kind of all year throughout the year that their power play runs through their defense shooting. He's on the second unit, but they'll run them both with Anderson, Tatar, Armia, and Stahl net front. So there's a lot of value, I think, in getting some of these pieces of Montreal. And, if you think they could somehow win the game, then if you're fading Toronto and you want to get crazy in GPP, price 7,400 isn't anywhere near what I'd call a value. Like if he was, $7K, I might consider it, but not here at this price. But there's value there in a game that I really feel like is a good over bet. So is there anything else or any players you wanted to mention? I tried to give you some time to look it over.
I'll probably pass because life is far too short to bet on this version of the Montreal Canadiens. But, probably like you're saying, the place I would go is to the defense. Not only do they have decent shot upsides, but they also could hit the three shots, blocks, whatever. But as far as player props go, no, I'm honestly probably interested in some unders, some no points, things like that, just because I don't really see it from them. The first guy who jumps to mind, maybe a guy like Josh Anderson or something like that. He seems to be a little inflated a lot because of his scoring streaks. But he's not much of a point getter, things like that. So do some shopping, see what you can find. But I think there's a number of depth guys on Montreal who I'm just not about. So we have one more game. Do you want to just get over to it? All right.
Yeah, and I think, I would say, I think it might be the one that is going to be the most you have to be finger to the pulse on the news for the Vegas side for 27 reasons. We did see an injury to Nosek in the last game that took him out, and he didn't end up seeing many minutes at all. That definitely changed what we're seeing on HockeyViz. By the way, if you're newer to the show, we kind of look at HockeyViz a lot and mention little things. If you're not looking at HockeyViz, you should be. It shows you a lot of different visualizations of what we're talking about. So if you're a visual learner and not always an audio learner, then definitely check that out. But you'll see the minutes were very inflated for the top six. With Stephenson, Carlson, Stone, Marchessault, Smith, and Tuck all seeing a majority of the minutes at 5-on-5 in the power play. They got the win, the empty net. Tuck did most of that work, but we should be getting someone back. They called up 2 players, and we don't know on Pacioretty. So Matt, all of that being said, what are your leans on this game, and how are you feeling going back to Minnesota?
Well, you did give me a great business idea. Audible for HockeyViz. You sort of load up Minnesota Vegas, and someone just sort of reads into your ears. Jared Spurgeon played 23 minutes, and they just sort of list everything. I can see that working.
Yeah. I said audio and then I said audible. I am really on one tonight.
It's all right. We're just angling for the sponsors, but big, always big thanks to our sponsors over at Prize Picks. So anyway, on the Vegas Minnesota angle, what you're saying about Patches is totally true. The sort of who they introduce into the lineup, whether it's Cody Glass or Dylan Sakura, or, if it's not Patches, it's probably not relevant, given the way Alex Tuck played last game. He seems like he will be on that top line regardless of what happens here. So, it sort of feels like it's set in stone that Stevenson, Tuck, Stone will be the top line with Marchessault, Carlson, Smith. If I have to pick between them, I'm probably siding with the freaking William Karlsson. There's his name. That side of things, I just don't trust Chandler Stevenson just yet. I know Mark Stone sort of picks him up and carries him around, but frankly, I know that Vegas is favored, but I don't know. I'm feeling more underdogs. I like Minnesota again. It looks good. If Matt Dumber's engaged in a game, Minnesota's outlook is just so much different. And Dumba was a freaking monster out there, putting up, I believe 3 shots on goal, 9 block shots, and a goal. Like,
Pretty
come on,
good.
like he needs some help. And I think this is the game that Kaprizov steps up. They're back at home. Kaprizov had success against Vegas all year. Minnesota as a team had success against Vegas all year. So I think they actually take care of business here in the money lines. And yeah, I'm more looking at the Minnesota guys myself.
Yeah, I mean, it really is tough. If Pacioretty flips the slate kind of right on its head late, so I'm of the mindset of trying to make sure I have that cap if I'm considering playing multiple guys in this game. It's going to be hard to do that if I kind of lock in a lot of this Toronto side. So I'll see what ends up coming to fruition there. But it's going to be hard for me to look away from Kaprizov. And it also is hard to get the right stacking line mates with him because Zuccarello and Hartman do not correlate on the power play, but they correlate on their own power play. I think you could still probably get away with it. And as you mentioned, Dumba fitting in. Kaprizov actually kind of stayed out there for most of the run. I don't know if he's quite getting OV status, but I'm interested to see if maybe, hey, like we need to score here to keep up with Vegas. Like maybe Kaprizov stays out a little bit longer on the power play, which might just make it irrelevant. But that line stack is, I think, is really strong still. It's just really cheap. Hartman stayed right at 3,300, 4 shots, 1 block, so 9 shots on goal in the first 2 games. For a guy at 3,300, that's really hard to beat.
Yeah, with power play time. I mean, we're not finding that anywhere. So
yeah, so I do think that line with Dumba is a really nice value spot. Because Dumba's only 44 and he correlates with the second unit. And if Kaprizov, like I said, stays out there, the deterrent on it is that he's not on the unit. But if we get, I think I keep Kaprizov out there. He is by far their most skilled forward. So
I'm back.
That'll make sense.
Yeah,
and like we have to mention Fiala as well, because I'm going to keep talking. 8 shots on goal. My God.
Yeah. So this is why I don't really want pieces of Pittsburgh Islanders. I don't want Montreal. Like my sort of like my chase, my underdog. I mean, Minnesota actually might even be bet up to a slight favorite. I'm already seeing them at -110. So like it might be moving. I know sharp money will be coming in on Minnesota like it did for the series odds before game one. So, at home, I think I'm in on this Minnesota side. You nailed it with the Ryan Hartman take. I think that's the guy. You want to get him to score +320. Power play time, a bunch of shots. Oh yeah, playing with Kirill Kaprizov, like it just unlocks so much. I think that's really, really strong. And yeah, like that's sort of where I think I will be going with this one and building around that. But you could also get crazy with Joel Eriksson Ek, who's been, pretty consistent all year against Vegas, not just the 4 shots in each of the first 2 games of this year. But he did have, he was nearly a point a game in the regular season against them. And for a guy without power play time, that's pretty impressive stuff. So, if you think this is a tight checking type game, maybe Eriksson Ek gets a few blocks on the power play and puts up a point or two, which is really what you're looking for in these, larger field contests over on DraftKings. So that's sort of my overall thoughts on this game. I totally get game stacking it. I think there's a lot of volume here, especially for some Vegas defensemen, like, Alex Pietrangelo or Shea Theodore. The nice thing about playing those guys as well, if you have a, Kaprizov, whatever stack, is if Patches is a late addition, you can actually scramble, you can pivot around and get a 1-2% on Max Pacioretty. So I do think leaving yourself some flexibility, in DFS is what you want to do. But as far as, the betting side of things, I think I'm on the Kaprizov shot prop because, pour one out for him not hitting it last game, but he had enough chances, just missed it a couple of times. And what you going to do? He had 2, like he was right there. And then secondly, just sort of getting in on this Minnesota side of the betting action. So yeah, anything else here?
I mean, looking at the to score odds and some of the props, you mentioned a few of them, but Fiala +200, I think that's pretty sharp. The guy is absolutely firing. As far as stacking goes, Kaprizov and Fiala could be fun with the power play correlation. I think we mentioned that last podcast. And then lastly, why do I feel like there's one more guy? I don't know. There's really no one else that's super strong there. I think you kind of hit the main ones. If you get a chance to get some blocks, Dumba, like we mentioned, pretty solid bet. If you get about like 1.5 blocks, like that's jam lock. Okay, I think we could probably move on unless if you had one more thing or anything else you wanted to touch on.
No, so we can sort of keep the same thing going we did the last show. Like you have exactly one bet to save your family, to save your life. You know, where we're getting high
was it
stakes
Mike
stuff
Kaprizov
here.
last time?
Oh boy.
It was.
Oh boy.
My
That's
family's already.
tough.
All right.
Mine might have been
Chance.
Florida, honestly. So
double or nothing. It's double or nothing.
All right.
It's like you watch Game of Thrones. It's like the ladies there that you can bring them back to life or not now. The fire
The
lady.
confused look on my face is I'm not the guy.
Off the top of my head.
I am not the guy to make pop culture references to. So
okay.
Big apologies.
Unless they're SpongeBob. I know that. All right.
Yes.
Now, I mean, gun to my head, I'm going to go with one that isn't crazy. It's not too crazy, but it's only minus 132. Austin Matthews to score. The guy's netting one. The guy's putting one in. They're coming back.
Yeah.
You're welcome, family.
Yeah, look, I hate to be, I was going to go with the Toronto team total. I believe it was 3.5 was about plus 105 over. I just think 4 or 5 goals is very, very, very likely for the squad. I don't see it from Montreal. So that's what I'm doing. All right. One stack. Like, what's the first stack you're going to do in DFS? And then we can get on out of here. Like the first stack.
I said the Toronto one like 7 times. So yeah. I'm trying to find a way to do the Toronto and the Minnesota. It's really hard to make it work with Kaprizov. So I'm not sure what it's going to come out to. It might end up as being the 2-man Hartman Dumba. And then I'm just going to look if there's any chance I can make it work. I'd have to take out Marner though. There's just no other way. But those are kind of the two.
All right. I think I want to go with Barkov and Marchment. Obviously make sure that holds, but I'm pretty sure it will, seeing as Marchment was their only goal scorer last game. And it's just a great way to sort of save a bunch of salary, of course. And then secondly, Barkov is likely to play the most minutes of anyone on the slate. I love that. He's the guy who stuffs all 4 categories: goals, assists, shots, blocks. And then if you want a third guy, maybe you could go with Carter Verhaeghe. I kind of prefer going with Hornqvist for a very similar salary. Like, they're not 5-on-5 correlated, but they're, the power play. So I think that's what I'm doing. Maybe Jonathan Huberdeau as well, though, if you have the salary. Like, I think that Florida puts up some goals here. They get back, right back into the thick of things with this game being fun, up tempo. And I think Florida finally takes home their first victory of the series. So, all right. That'll do it for us. Once again, be sure to check out Prize Picks. Use promo code MMN when you sign up. You'll get an up to $100 match deposit bonus. So it'd be silly not to do it. Anything else before we sign off, DJ?
No, definitely. Thank you for listening. As always, we love giving you the content, love being here. So we'll be back next week on both of our platforms, just giving as much information and news as possible. Keep rating, reviewing, liking, commenting, following us on Twitter. I still am waiting for someone to send me a nice Prize Picks board. So please do that if you play. If you aren't playing and can play, do it for me. Just give me a DM. I'll give you some stuff. I mean, they have some really fun and interesting ways of enjoying every hockey game, and that's what it's all about. Is you're listening to this either because you're a hockey fanatic or B, you love to gamble, and you can do both. And Prize Picks give you just another way of doing it. Like I said, if you put all this time and effort in and you're not trying to find every edge you can get, you're doing yourself a disservice. And Prize Picks has an edge. People are winning a lot of money, and I'm sure you can do it too.
All right.
So jump on over.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter at MayoMediaNet. I'm at Fake Moods, and DJ is at DJ_Mitchell94. Enjoy yet another day of intense playoff hockey. Welcome to the Canadian teams. Enjoy the playoffs. Good luck, everybody. We will see you.